Every fan of human spaceflight knows the SpaceX Starship and its impressive capabilities. We all watch what's happening at Starbase, Texas, and are impressed by the promise of a fully reusable super heavy lift rocket system with capabilities unlike anything we have ever had in human spaceflight. Now, of course, for people like me who think that it would be a very excellent idea to build moon bases as fast as possible, we often wonder, is Starship really the best way to do that? Or will we need other moon landing systems which will open up the moon frontier in a faster and more promising way? And how does Blue Origin fit into all of this? Could it even be that the Blue Origin moon landing approach makes more sense for the colonization of the moon than what we could do with the SpaceX Starship? SpaceX and NASA like to show beautiful renderings of impressive moon bases like this one here, where we see lots of lunar starships, or Starship Human Landing Systems, Starship HLS in short. We see lots of them standing around, and so naturally we assume that Starship makes a lot of sense for moon landings. And indeed, the capabilities of this machine are beyond crazy. As we said in the beginning, the promise is immense. We could land as much as 100 metric tons on the surface of the moon in just one go. As a comparison, the Apollo lunar lander weighed about 15 metric tons in its base configuration, which it had for instance with Apollo 11 to 14. Later Apollo missions used the slightly heavier lunar module, which also carried the famous rover, so they were a bit heavier at around 16.4 metric tons. So one single Starship HLS could land 6 to 7 Apollo lunar modules in one single go to the surface of the moon with regards to weight. Therefore, Starship could deploy huge amounts of cargo to the moon. We could thus build moon bases very fast and deploy pressurized rovers. We could deploy a lot of habitat modules, and so building moon bases with the SpaceX behemoth would be possible with only very few Starship moon landings. And yet, there's a big problem with Starship and the moon. Now, just as a clarifying statement, I am a fan of Starship and think it is truly a revolutionary rocket system that will utterly change human spaceflight. But still, I think that we need Blue Origin for our future moon bases. See, the problem with Starship is that big elephant in the room, that it was designed with Mars in mind, not with the moon in mind. Elon Musk is a super Mars fanboy. And who can blame him? Mars is extremely fascinating, and with regards to planets, certainly the best choice for future bases in the entire solar system. Now, because Mars's atmosphere is composed by 95% of CO2, so carbon dioxide, it is possible via a chemical reaction to extract the CO2 from Mars's atmosphere and then add hydrogen under pressure and high temperature in order to obtain methane. First, you would need water though, because you need the hydrogen. But worry not, because there's plenty of water ice on Mars. In fact, it was found that above a certain latitude, there is a huge water ice layer 1 to 2 meters below ground, covering huge areas on Mars. So finding water will not be a problem there. And so we could extract the hydrogen from that water and combine it in this chemical reaction with CO2, and thus we would obtain methane. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, because the Starship runs on liquid methane and liquid oxygen. So via the so-called Sabatier reaction, which is the name of the chemical reaction I just explained previously, we could easily create fuel for Starship on Mars. Therefore, Starship is excellent for Mars. Imagine, Starships land on Mars, bring with them a few fuel creation units, water ice extractors, and electrolysis units in order to split the water into oxygen and hydrogen, and voila, you can create your return fuel directly on Mars, which is excellent because that allows you, of course, to send huge cargo to Mars with Starships. And you don't have to worry about having enough fuel left, because you can just create your own return fuel on Mars. Awesome, so let's do the same thing on the moon then. Well, there is a bit of a problem on the moon. The moon doesn't have a CO2 atmosphere. In fact, the moon has no atmosphere to speak of at all. So we cannot just land there with Starship and create methane for the return trip. Thus, you have to tank up Starship in Earth orbit already with a tanker Starship. And this tanker Starship will need 6 to 8 Starship flights in order to be fully fueled up. So only one Starship moon landing will require a lot of Starship launches. And you have to bring enough fuel with you so that the Starship then still has enough fuel left after having landed on the moon in order to be able to get back to lunar orbit and then dock with another spacecraft that then brings the astronauts back to Earth. Starship will not have enough fuel left to even get back to Earth. So this entire beautiful huge Starship, as it currently stands, will be discarded and most likely crashed on purpose onto the surface of the moon. So you see the problem here. The whole approach is not ideal for Starship as it currently is planned. So therefore it would be good to have something specifically designed for the moon and not for Mars. Enter Blue Origin with their crewed moon lander, which is currently just called the Blue Origin Mk2 lander. It will be powered by their BE7 engines that will run on liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. Now why is this excellent for the moon? Because in order to obtain liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, you just need water. And on the moon, you will find plenty of water at the lunar south pole in form of water ice. You will just need to harvest the water ice and then split it via electrolysis into hydrogen and oxygen, and voila, you have your fuel for the return trip. Thus, the Blue Origin moon landing architecture makes a lot more sense for the moon than Starship. The systems can all be reused, the moon lander itself, the space tug, which will be necessary to transport the lander to the moon, and which can also be used to transport propellant. And if more propellant is needed, it can simply be created on the surface of the moon. I will make a very detailed video on how exactly Blue Origin's moon landing architecture works, meaning how exactly all of Blue Origin's components will work together in order to land astronauts on the moon and in order to build a moon base. But suffice it to say that it seems that Blue Origin's architecture was built with the moon in mind, whereas SpaceX's architecture was built with Mars in mind. So I really hope that Jeff Bezos will hurry up, because as of today, Blue Origin hasn't exactly been the fastest space company. They also had been engaged in some legal hassles and had even sued NASA before, and have tried to convince the FAA to limit Starship launches, which I think is really not the best approach to get things done fast. Jeff Bezos has been spending a lot more time at Blue Origin since 2021, hoping to get their New Glenn rocket ready, which will be their reusable heavy lift rocket, a critical component as well for future moon landings with the Blue Moon lander. So I really hope that Blue Origin will be able to get faster, because we really need that additional moon landing architecture in order to complement the SpaceX HLS approach. In the end, competition is always good, and I think that Blue Origin's moon architecture is exactly what we need in order for a fully sustainable human presence on the moon, in addition to the SpaceX Starship, which was built more with Mars in mind than the moon. So hurry up, Jeff, we need your space hardware for the moon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, since we will continue putting out lots of videos on fascinating technological developments in human spaceflight and other areas. And please consider supporting us on Patreon or via a YouTube membership, because that will allow us to make even more and better videos. Thanks so much for watching, have a nice day wherever you are, and see you next time.